faith healing. A craft without an apprenticeship, a ministry without responsibility, a vocation without a ministry. How did I get involved? As a young man, I chanced to flirt with it and it possessed me. No. That's rhetoric. No, let's say I did it because I could do it. That's accurate enough. And occasionally it worked. Oh yes, occasionally it did work. Oh yes. And when it did, when I stood before a man and placed my hands on him and watched him become whole in my presence, there were nights of exultation, of consummation. No, not that I was doing good, giving relief, spreading joy. Good God, no, nothing at all to do with that. But because the questions that undermined my life then became meaningless, and because I knew that for those few hours I had become whole in myself, and perfect in myself, and in a manner of speaking, an aristocrat, if the term doesn't offend you.
Hello everyone and welcome to Be My Guest with me, Mary Honan, on Limerick Media TV, supporting the Samaritans, Limerick and Tipperary. And my special guest here today is somebody I've been hoping would come on for a long time, and that's Jackie Scanlan from Ennis. Hi Jackie.
Hi Mary, how are you?
I should say Jackie Scanlan is a TCRG and an ADCRG and a
BG, chancer.
Irish dancing teacher and adjudicator. You're okay, Jackie?
Yeah, fine.
That's good. No, I mean, it's just, we were talking off camera about the death of a colleague of ours, very young, John Saunders. It's just, I still find it, I woke up this morning and I thought, oh, please tell me it's a bad dream.
Yeah.
Because it was just, it's just
very sad.
You thought John.
Yes, John came to me as a beginner when I was teaching with Lily Slevin. And I went to Canada maybe a year or two later, and he had just started his heavy shoes when I went to Canada. Anytime I met him, he always said, you started me in my heavy shoes. And he stayed with Lily Slevin thereafter. He was very loyal to the school.
Yeah.
And he became a very, very good teacher. And one thing about John, he loved dancing more than anything else.
Passionate about it.
He was quite competitive when he was dancing competitively. But I think more than anything, he was really passionate, as you say, about dancing.
And he had actually beautiful feet. It was the one thing I used to say to him, John, your feet are beautiful. You know, they were just
a fine, strong dancer, yeah.
Beautifully, very masculine dancer. But he'd often, because he knows I'm a night owl, and I'd be on the computer. And at the time, I hadn't finished my research, but he'd say, "Are you still up?" Because he'd be passing my house at maybe 12 when he'd be finished work, and he'd pop in for a cup of tea, and we'd be chatting for about an hour, and then he'd get up on the floor and he'd start making up a step, and he'd say, "I'm after making this up now. What do you think of it?" And I just so on behalf of all of us, I suppose, and particularly on behalf of all of us here at Limerick Media TV, because my colleague knows him as well. Actually, he knows him from Shannon before I introduced them, and he was as shocked as I was yesterday. So yeah. It's just unbelievable. And on behalf of all of us, I send my commiserations to his family and loved ones at this time, and everyone who misses him dreadfully. He will be very missed. He wasn't
very much so.
He wasn't somebody who was over the top or overstated. He was very understated, but you knew his passion was 100% for the dancing.
Yes, we have very few Clare teachers, and he was one of the stronger ones, and he'll be sincerely missed by all the Clare fraternity, we'll say.
You'd be missed by all of us in Limerick as well, and all
Absolutely,
over
yeah.
the country. But Jackie, tell me, you were born in Ennis, and you've always stayed in Clare.
No, Mary,
Why you not?
definitely not. No, no. I was born actually in Kilrush, West
Yeah,
Clare.
you were born in Clare.
And when I was a month old, my father was a lighthouse keeper with the Commissioners of Irish Lights, and he
Okay.
was stationed in Ballycotton in Cork. So
Oh,
we moved lock, stock, and barrel to Ballycotton, and I was there until I was 7, and
wow.
started dancing when I was there. Would you believe? And then
Really
came to Ennis.
came back to yeah the can. But
Back
you
to
love
Clare.
it. You love Clare.
Oh, I do,
Yeah,
absolutely. There's no better county for music, song, dance, you name it, we have it. I'm
yeah.
proud of it.
You see, I see you as a Clareman, 100%.
Oh, I would be. Yeah, well, I was born in Kilrush, as I say, in West Clare, so that never leaves you, of course, but I have a little bit of Cork in me.
Yeah, and obviously you'd have a love for Cork as well because of that.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely. I love West Cork, and in fact, all parts of Cork I love. Anytime I go down there, I really get a buzz, from it as much as I would in Clare. But I went to Canada then as well,
yeah,
and I was there for 7 years. So I have a little bit of Canada in me as well.
yeah, and you're very very good with, friends with a lot of the Canadian teachers as a result of it. Um,
Absolutely, yeah.
isn't it funny, Jackie, that with Irish dancing, I've been saying it to so many people, you could just pick up, as they say, rock up in Canada, and just it was almost like you were coming home because the people that you were seeing in Canada were people you saw when you were living in
That's
Clare
right. That's
through
right.
the Feshina, through the competitions.
Yeah, when I went to Canada first, and I went out on a contract to teach Irish dancing, it wasn't a recognised school at the time. It was just a group of parents in Winnipeg, Manitoba, that had come together, and they had started teaching their own kids. And then I got a notice from Mary Duffy. Would you believe? I
Oh,
had just done my teachers, and when I went to Dublin working in with the Department of Agriculture initially. Um, I went to Inishalga for maybe 6 months or so,
okay.
really just to work on my teacher's exam more than anything.
Okay.
But Mary had intentions of putting me into teams and so forth, and I
Yeah.
just didn't want to do that. So I wasn't interested in going back into the competitive side of it. I'd been in it for so many years. And so Mary knew me because of that, and she wrote to me and asked me, would I be interested in going out to Winnipeg? So I did. But like as you say, I picked up the dancing book, and I rang people that I would know, like Paula Woodgate, on Coltis
Yeah.
tours that I was on down
Lovely,
through the
isn't she,
years,
Paula?
would stay with Paula. So I rang her because of that. Then I got to know everybody, and I did my adjudicators when I was out there as well, and I did them in New Jersey actually. But so I judged a lot of American feshes initially, so I got to know a lot of the American scene.
Yeah, and you were very good friends with Sally. Sally
Absolutely.
is some woman, isn't she, Jackie?
Oh, powerful, powerful, and particularly with me because I was coming from the country and I was very innocent and serene, I think is the word. But I'll tell you, Sally knocked that out of me fairly quick.
Yeah,
And we became great buddies. And she's a wonderful teacher and a wonderful person.
she is, and she came to it as well through a kind of an unusual. I mean, she was with Festival. She was telling me, which I
Right.
didn't know. She was Festival until she went to Canada, and there was no Festival teacher, so she had to become CLRG.
That's right. That's
And
right.
yeah, so did you love Canada?
I did. I really enjoyed it. The dancing was a little bit strange in the sense that uh, we lived in Manitoba in the
Okay.
middle of Canada, and we were the only dancing school at the time in Manitoba. So our nearest feis would have been Saskatoon, in the next province in Saskatchewan, and it took about 12 hours to get there by car.
Yeah.
And then the main schools were in Calgary and Vancouver, Sally and Fionnuala Irwin and Tony Comerford and people like that.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult to get the kids to feis. You'd be lucky to do 2 a year. And because of that, the kids didn't progress as quick as if they were exposed to competition. Exactly.
You do.
But I loved it. I really did love it. And I got very involved with an Irish drama group out there as well. And there was a wonderful Irish diaspora over there. And they really, really took me under their wing. And I had a fantastic 7 years there.
You see, that made you integrate quicker. I mean, I interviewed a few years ago Jackie O'Leary, and she had moved to America or to Canada at the time, and she was desperately lonely on the phone. And she said to me, Mary, I just miss home so badly.
Yeah.
I just can't cope, she said, with it. But then suddenly, it was like, I suppose because she was involved in the Irish dancing community, she was able to just completely immerse herself and almost forget that when you're at a feis, you could be in any county, you could be in any country, you could be in any city. So the next time I was talking to her, she had just completely embraced the country, and I'm hoping to have her on again now to talk about her life now in Canada, because she
seems to have settled.
She seems to have
very much so. Yeah,
she'd come home now.
She's another great person, and
absolutely.
Somebody that I'd say loves dancing as well.
Absolutely,
passionately,
But Jackie, how did you miss Canada when you came home, or were you glad to come home?
Well, initially I went out. I took a career break from the revenue commissioners at the time, and it was for 2 years. And that was the contract that I was going out on. But then at the end of the 2 years, I opened up the school under my own name and extended my career break for another year. Pardon me?
It's great.
It was back then, you could. So when I extended it to third year, then with the intention of finding somebody within the class, one of the senior dancers, maybe to do their exam and take over. But at the end of the day, it took almost 6 years before I was able to trust somebody to take over the class, because I was in the middle of nowhere. If I left, there would have been nobody to take over the school.
Yeah.
And you get very attached to the kids that you're teaching.
God, yeah.
And I just didn't want to leave them in the lurch, basically. So eventually, after 7 years, I came back. I was ready to come back at that stage.
Yeah.
I had overstayed the initial 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And when I came back, within 2 weeks, I started teaching dancing in Ennis on the same day that I started back behind the same desk that I had left in the Revenue Commissioners in Limerick.
And did you have
everything just worked very well for me,
Everything slotted into place. Did
Absolutely,
you have no problem at all with visas and that, because of the fact that you had had to extend it? Everything seems to have worked out for you.
Yeah, I had landed immigrant status. They arranged landed immigrant status for me going out. And the beauty with that is after 3 years, I was able to do my Canadian citizenship. So I'm a dual citizen now of Canada.
Are you?
I have 2 passports, yeah.
Excellent.
It's very, very handy.
I'm trying to get my, it's long overdue, I'm trying to get my English passport, just to have it. Do you know?
Right.
Because especially post-Brexit,
Absolutely.
I might need it, but I was born there and my father was born there, so
you should get it quick
enough. I won't have any problem getting it, but and I lived there till and spent 6 months of the year there for many years.
Yes.
So I shouldn't have any problem, but I do think it's important if you have dual citizen, the ability to have dual citizen.
Yeah. I was very lucky because the landed immigrant status that they applied for initially, they had to advertise in newspapers and everything to see if there was a local available that could teach Irish dancing. And there was also, I think they also had the language thrown in there, and they also had some of the drama experience as well. And they were looking for a person that could do all this. And of course, they were very few and far between out there. So because of that, they were able to get it very easily for me.
Yeah, that's and then it was all English speaking there, wasn't?
It was, yes.
Quebec.
There would have been a small French community, but not as big as there would be in Quebec or over in Eastern Canada.
It's like Paddy O'Donnell. Did you see the interview I did with Paddy O'Donnell?
Yes. Paddy's he's a I don't know what you'd call Paddy really. He's a gentleman first and foremost. But I've adjudicated with Paddy at the All Irelands a number of years ago, along with Eddie Murphy, and I must say it was the most fun weekend I've ever spent with Paddy and Eddie. And Maura Lamb, God rest her soul, was also adjudicating. And
I tell you, I thought it was
we just had such great fun the whole week.
I thought it was going to choke. I really did. And Deirdre, I mean, I thought, she was trying her utmost to try and maintain some level of decorum throughout.
He's priceless.
But he had he went to Canada as well, and the same as you. He had to do something that no Canadian could do. So he worked on an Indian reservation teaching Irish.
That's right. Yeah, they were in Alberta, northern Alberta, I think, originally, around Red Deer and places like that, which would be quite isolated,
And he took the long road. I mean, he brought the whole family with him, and they hitchhiked when they got there. So can you just imagine it? He's 17 years of age after adopting his children, his brothers and sisters, and they all like little goslings, as I said.
That's right.
Sailing or flying off to another country and then hitchhiking.
He was a wonderful dancer as well. He danced. I think Christine Angus he danced with.
Well, according to him, he only could go in one direction, he said. And that was because he had he said, I have a wonky eye and I could only go in one direction. And I just kept going in that direction.
Well, I think it directed him to the World Championship, didn't it? Like, as far as I can know, he won the world.
Yeah, he did.
Terrific dancer.
But Jackie, how do you think COVID's affecting? How's it affecting you? Because you live on your own, the same as I live on my own. And now with this new thing that they're bringing in tonight at 11 o'clock, that you can't have a visitor at your house or even in the garden, but yet you can have 6 people out, or you can meet up with 6 friends, or you can go to a wedding with 50, and you can't have mass only online. It's just all.
Yeah. I suppose because I'm not teaching anymore, it doesn't affect me as badly as it has done most of the Irish dancing community that's out there. It's very, very difficult for anybody that's teaching dancing at the moment, because you don't know what sector you sit in. Are you a sport? You're not really a sport. It's artistic. It's an art form.
I see it as cultural arts.
Yeah, so that's a very important thing, I think, that needs to be rectified fairly quickly.
Fairly quickly.
It doesn't. I'm working at home. Obviously, I'm working remotely. And revenue are still taking in a lot of money, so there's still plenty of work to do. So work-wise, I suppose the biggest disadvantage is I'm not meeting work colleagues, which you would be doing every day. We had a communications meeting yesterday now, and it was the first time I had seen quite a few of the staff within the last 5 or 6 months. Saw them on Zoom, so it was good, and we're going to have more regular communications meetings to keep that, because of that. Other than that, I suppose it hasn't affected me in terms of driving to Limerick, which I used to dread every morning with the traffic and what have you.
Yeah.
So some things are easier.
I think it's going to give people, I suppose, a different perspective about how they're going to employ people. Places like revenue and that will probably sit back and think, do we really need these buildings when we can have people working from home? Or do you see? You see, I see us as, I mean, we are social animals, human beings are, and I don't think people,
You're
I
right.
think the cure is worse than the disease at this stage, because people, I think, are craving human contact.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
we did a survey on you know, the staff, whether or not they would prefer to be working from home. We'll say if all this was over within the next month, would they prefer to stay at home and work, or would they like to be in the office? And I think without exception, most people said, look, we'd love 3 days in the office, maybe, and 2 days at home or whatever. And the reason being was that interaction with their work colleagues, which
Yeah.
I think everybody misses, definitely.
And I mean, no matter how good Zoom is or whatever,
There's always technological
there's
difficulties.
there's a screen between you,
Yeah.
and I mean, especially when you're at home all day, you know, you live in the house, and I'm the same, and you know, getting out and meeting people is fundamentally probably more important than if you had 9 or 10 inside in your house that you're probably just wanting to be on your own for 5 or 10
That's true.
or even a day,
Yeah.
day's peace. You don't feel that when I mean, you're into the acting as well. Tell me, we'll go back to your Irish dancing in a minute, but
Yeah, actually, just on that subject, the Ennis Players, which I am a member of, an amateur dramatic society here in Clare, we did a play reading only in the last week or 2 weeks ago in Glore, the Glore Theatre in Ennis. Now, granted, the audience could only be, I think, was a 45 or something. And basically, we just read a play, which we had been rehearsing to put on live last February, but then COVID came into view, so we had to cancel it. So we actually did the play reading, and it was great. It was great interaction with the audience and with the other cast members, all socially distanced, of course. But
yeah.
I've been involved with drama since I was at school, and did quite a few productions at school, and then got an offer to take a scholarship in RADA in London.
Oh wow, Jackie.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity. I was only 16, going on 17 at the time. I had just done my Leaving Cert.
Yeah.
But my parents weren't anxious for me to go.
I know it's terrible when that happens. I
just felt I was too young.
Yeah, I could have, you know, I mean, it was ballet with me, and same with, and here again in Joan Denise Moriarty in Cork. My mother, there was no way she was going to let me to Cork. There was no way she was going to let me stay in England to go.
Times were different then. That's
because
true.
she wanted me home in Ireland, and you know, I just feel. Do you feel sorry that happened? Would you have
from time to time you would, you know, but then like I got very involved in the amateur drama scene here in Ennis, and have done lots of productions down through the years and done competitive festivals and so forth. And loved that. Really loved that. And it actually meant then that I could teach dancing and concentrate on that as well. There were times I'd come home from work at, we'll say, 6 o'clock for a beginner's class, and then the open kids would come in. I'd be finished at 8:30, and I'd literally run across town to get to a drama rehearsal. Like, life was so full back then, you know, and you wonder where we got the energy to keep us going, but we did. I couldn't do it now. No way at all.
No, I mean,
but I've always been involved then in drama, and then I got involved in the administration side of drama as well. I was chairperson of the Drama League of Ireland on 2 different occasions, and that took up a lot of time. And of course, with being on the commission as well, that takes up quite a lot of time as well.
I was just looking there for, I mean, Ricky Souness in the UK. He came out with a statement the other day about the people in the arts. You may have to basically go back and train to be blah blah blah, A B C D E, and he threw a lot of people into a lot of a tizzy, because you know, it's, you know, people who aren't into the arts, like I mean, I've been into the arts, you've been into the arts, and people like us, it'll never be a job as such. It'll always be a passion. And
Absolutely.
it'll always be a drive, beyond a job. So to say to somebody, with all due respects to the man, to say to somebody who's an artist, who's an actor, who's a musician, a singer, retrain, go out and become a nurse. There's loads of nursing positions. That's wonderful if that is your passion and your drive to be a nurse, be the best nurse you can. But if you're a singer and a dancer or a musician, that is what you live and breathe. It's the first thing you think of in the morning, the last thing you think of at night. That to me would be hell, having to do something that I was doing just for a job.
Yeah, that's true. I suppose being a professional in any of those fields is very difficult because you're trained for that profession. Whereas if you're in the amateur status, it gives you the opportunity to try other things. It's easier to get out of it when you have to get out of it, or vice versa.
But you've won there. Look at that. That's a beautiful award.
It is lovely. That was the All Ireland Open Drama Finals in Athlone. It's sponsored by RTE every year, and we had a production of the Playboy of the Western World, Sean O'Casey's play.
Okay, yeah.
And overall, we got third out of the 10 groups, whatever, had qualified for the All Ireland finals. But I was lucky enough to win Best Supporting Actor for the role I played. So that's one of my acting highlights, we'll say.
There's no such thing. There's no luck in it. You were talented enough to win it.
Loved it, absolutely loved it, and really relished the opportunity to play a lot of parts down through the years, as I relished the opportunity to teach a lot of very, very good, able kids as well down through the years. All thanks, I might add, to Maureen Toohey, the great Maureen Toohey, who was my teacher when I came to Ennis.
Orla said to me, Mary, Mam, we'll get Mam on, because I wanted Maureen and Orla came on with me, and she said Mam will be on, and so hopefully as well Rose and Tony will come on with me. Cian said, leave it with me, I'll make it happen. So but
you get great stories there.
Yeah,
great stories, great history.
Yeah, it's and of course Dr. John Culnan is coming on again for his 5th episode. It's true for Brian Hoban. Mary, that's
it's like his books.
To a Netflix.
But it's great to record somebody like John, because that'll all be in the archives down, for many years to come, which is a great advantage.
Orla suggested to me that that I get them into UL. Into the special collections out there, and that they're there
good
for
idea.
Students, and the same with the Holocaust interviews I've done, to have them out there as well, she said, so that students can refer to them. And
so very good.
She's getting back to me on it. But Jackie, is it a fair question to ask you? I know, even before I ask it, I know the answer. Is it a fair question to ask you which of the two, is the first thing you think of in the morning? Dancing, or Irish dancing, or drama? Or is it a mixture of the two?
Of course. Irish dancing every day of the week, be it, I loved teaching when I was teaching, and I love adjudicating now, and I love doing grade exams. I enjoy being on the commission, taking part in the different discussions, and hopefully formulating a better way forward for the Irish dancing community. I think there's still a lot of work to be done, but the people that are at the helm of the commission are all volunteers at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And they work so hard, and I see them there, and the amount of time that they put into it, the amount of calls that they get, the amount of praise that they get, and the amount of abuse that they get.
Yeah.
You'd wonder, is it really worth having.
No, it's only human nature, Jackie, at the end of the day. When
That's
people
true. That's true. People,
when
exactly.
people are frustrated about something, it's like going into a shop and often, well, I've never brought anything back that I've ever bought, but you'd see people when I was working in stores and that, coming back, and they're complaining through you more than at you. And it's nothing to do, they're projecting their stress or their emotions onto you because you just happen to be there, and you just happen to be good at listening, and I think that's the way it is. I think it's human nature. When people are frustrated, who are you going to take it out on but the person that's standing between you and getting what you want done? So I don't think it's a personal thing if people are, because I think at the end of the day, we all know it's all voluntary and people are, giving up their time. And
that's right. There's a lot of very good, knowledgeable people there, and it's great that they are given their time, and
definitely,
and it's all for the betterment of dancing. I think at the end of the day, hopefully there's nobody in it that's in it for just themselves, that they're there with the right reasons, and I think they are.
Yeah, but I mean, there is going to have to be, as we said at the outset of this, there is going to have to be some clarification, I think, on our status. Are we cultural dance? Are we sport? And I never saw when people say, oh, they're athletes. They're not athletes, they're dancers. Yes, and people will say, oh, but they have to be as fit as athletes. Yes, but so do ballet dancers. And ballet dancers would never, ever call themselves athletes. They'd call themselves dancers. Or it's an art form. And
that's right, yeah.
And
I personally can't understand how it is determined that it's a sport.
No.
I don't know where that came from. I don't know where that initially came from. Was it just something that the government decided to place Irish dancing in under sport? Because yes, it's a huge activity, but it's an artistic art form.
It is, and
it has to be recognised as that.
More than that, it's cultural, and we should be, we should be promoting whatever little bit we can do now during COVID. Priorities should be given to allowing classes that are promoting the Irish culture internationally. Should be, okay, they're opening up and they're saying, oh, well, if you're an elite sports person, there's not, what is not elite about the dancers at the World Championships, the dancers at the All Ireland and all of that? They're at the very top of their game, if you're to consider it a sport. But if not, then it's promoting culture to this country, and we're going to regret it if the government doesn't make some concessions for people working in the arts, the cultural arts, or arts in general.
Absolutely, and I think it's being felt in other realms as well, such as the music side of the arts.
Yeah.
The theatres, definitely. I mean, that's happening all over the world because the theatres are closed,
Yeah.
And as we had said earlier, there's a lot of people relying for their income on that art form, whatever it be. And unfortunately, it's just come to a standstill, So, but as far as the Irish dancing are concerned, I think we definitely need to find out what sector it should be in once and for all.
I mean, I was looking at Britain's Got Talent the other night, and they had 3 groups, Les Mis, forget what the
Right, it was fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, Les Mis and Phantom of the Opera and
Mary Poppins.
Yeah. And Jackie, it was emotional to watch it. I mean,
it was wonderful, yeah.
It was absolutely, and it's and you I don't think, for somebody to say, go back and retrain and maybe go into an office or go, and you think, when you're an artist, it's not something that gets you up there, it's something that'll get you there. And you don't
That's it.
get
Yeah.
from very few jobs other than unless you're 100% passionate about being an accountant or being in the revenue.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I wouldn't be able for the revenue financially because maths just goes over my head.
Well, I have to say I love it. I have to say that just in case anybody's listening, no, it's fine. It's fine. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I've
but you
enjoyed
have
my
an
career with
aptitude.
revenue.
You have an aptitude for that, Jackie. I mean, my friend's husband's an accountant, and I think I would eat it rather than actually have to sit down and work out figures. I mean, even the mention of a figure, the minute I see figures, I think, oh, for God's sake, life's too short to be working out that, I'm just, I don't get it. I'm, my brain doesn't work that way. And I admire people
But
who,
then you see, I wouldn't be able to write about the Holocaust, Mary.
you would.
Do you know? And the research that would be involved in something like that. I mean, that's great credit due
Well,
to you for doing something
it's
like that's artistic in itself, isn't it?
it is. It is
Absolutely. Yeah.
because I looked at the drawings and I looked at the artwork and I did all the art for it as well for the book,
Right.
and so it was kind of a mixture of everything that I've done, I suppose, through the art degree and through the literary side of it. So I did, yeah, it encompassed the whole lot. But I wish I was good at maths. You always want to be what you can't be. But Jackie, tell me about your career in dancing up to the time that you were a teacher. You went with like me to O'Rourke's.
I did. I did. I started dancing in Ballycotton in Cork, as I say, but to be quite honest with you, I can't even remember who the lady was. She was the principal of the school's wife. I don't think she was registered, or if she was. And of course, that would have been around 1966. I was 5 or 6
Same
at the
age.
time.
Yeah.
So there wouldn't have been a split. Even if she was registered, they would have everybody would have been one. So I started dancing with her. And when I came to Ennis then, when I was 7, I had to pass the community centre on the way to school. And my sister used to collect me at the time from school. And I heard the music one day coming back home. And of course, nothing would do but I get my sister to bring me in and have a look. And obviously, it was Maureen Toohey,
Yeah.
who had just started teaching in Ennis at the time in the community centre.
Wow. 1960.
1967. So I came home and I insisted. I told my mother I had to go, and my mother kind of said, "Oh no, you've finished with your dancing now. You know we did it in Cork and that." But I did my usual drama and got to go. So I was brought down, and it was Maureen wasn't long teaching in Ennis. 1967, she started in the community centre. And I danced competitively until I was about 16 or 17. And I got 4th in the world that under 14 or 15 at the time. I can't remember. And I had worked so hard.
Yeah.
And I felt at the time that was it. I couldn't work any harder. So by working so hard, I got 4th. So that was my limit, I felt. So then I kind of was working hard for my leaving cert at the time. And I got called to the civil service very, very quickly after that. So I gave up competition, we'll say, under 16, under 17 type of thing. And went to Dublin and danced, as I say, with Inishalka for about 6 months. And then went to the great Molly Farley to study, even though I was only 18, 19 at the time, but I wanted to prepare for my teacher's exam 2 years in
God, you
advance.
were in advance.
But it was just to be someplace every Wednesday night and go out to Molly's garage and
You had 4 more years before you were able to.
I know, but I was so all I wanted to do was become a teacher. So I would come home at the weekends, some weekends then. I was dancing with Foundry, the Coltis Cabaret show in Monkstown during the summer, with Frida Gray, Maria Wogan, Minnie Kieran, Donegal Meenachan, all those dancers, and loved it. But when I came home, I met Lily Slevin, who had just moved to Ennis.
Yeah.
And Lily was thinking of starting a class, but didn't want to do it by herself and asked me would I help her. So for the next year, I used to come down every Friday night, teach all day Saturday, and back to Dublin on Sunday for work. And eventually, I got a transfer to Limerick, which was the nearest to home, and taught then with Lily full time. Did my teachers in 1980. Yeah, 1980.
I
did my
I was
teachers.
82.
Yeah, and I did my adjudicators in New Jersey because I had moved to Canada at that stage, and I did those in 1990, 10 years later.
2000 and
Yeah.
2000.
So basically, that was my competitive career in a nutshell. But I traveled extensively then with Coltis on their American tours, their English tours, so on, down through the years.
Did you enjoy those?
Loved them.
Yeah.
That's why I went to Canada, I think, because you went to America and you stayed one night in Chicago, the next night you could be in Montreal, then you'd be back down to St. Louis. And I always wanted to say, I always said to myself, I'd love to stay there for a couple of days to see whether, I'd really like it. So, of course, when the opportunity came up then for Canada, I took it straight away.
See, that was
I had itchy feet.
Yeah, but that was because I suppose you were a young lad, young man from Clare or stroke Cork, and suddenly you were out, you were left loose in the world, if you like.
I was a culture, and I saw the bright lights. Yeah.
Bright lights.
So
it was the same for me. I mean, when I started going off with Bunratty, it was an addiction. I mean,
that's it.
Really
and
was.
You get a little bit of it, and you want more, basically.
And
but I will say,
sold for you as well, because I mean, Jerry O'Brien used to take our passports off us, and he'd come up and he'd book us in at. So I never knew what it was like, ever to actually remember my passport, go up, check in, fly out, and be on my own until I actually started judging. And that was a culture shock. And Linda Ball and myself we were stuck in an airport one day, and we were going through the book to try and find the person, because we couldn't. The airport was so big, we didn't know which door we were supposed to meet at. But luckily, we had that famous book that'll find anyone for you. And I just think it's so important. Because even if you were stranded anywhere in New York,
that's right.
As long as you have the teacher's
book. The teacher's book is like a Bible. But when I came back then to Ireland, I had got the itchy feet, that side of things out of the way, and I've loved being at home ever since. I started teaching with Mary Brady Costello then.
She loved
in Clare and in Galway, and was with Mary for a long number of years. And I retired basically from teaching in about 2005, 2006, when Gary Collins won the world.
Yeah.
And I remember going into the class after he had won, and he had retired himself, in essence. And I had lost the love for teaching at that stage, because a lot of our good dancers were going to college. We're about to go to college, and we had a lot of kids in the same age group type of thing, there would be one age group there at the Munster every year, and we'd have 4 girls in it, and 3 would always qualify. But it was a different 3 every year, and then we had Mary's niece was in Connacht, and she'd qualify. But all those were kind of going to college that stage, and I was looking back at the beginners and, putting the work into the beginners from scratch again. And because of work, I was getting promoted at work, and I was getting more involved with work.
Yeah.
And I really got into the drama scene then as well. So that's when I kind of retired.
Well, Mary Brady Costello's husband was my boss in Neodata.
That's right.
And, yes. At the time my parents died, and I, himself and Michael Cusick, who was over him again. I'll never forget either of the two of them, particularly John Costello, because anytime I wanted time off to go on tour, even if I'd used up all my holidays, he'd say, "Off you go, Mary." And I never realized his wife was a teacher, a dancing teacher, because I didn't know Mary at that stage. until he said it to me one day. He said, my wife is an adjudicator. And when he said her name, I said, oh, for God's sake, I should have made the connection, because he was just he was the best boss I ever had, you know, and it's so considerate, and it was never a problem. I never had to worry about, oh God, yeah, I've got to go in now and ask for time off, and I've used up all my holidays.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, Mary was a wonderful teacher.
Yeah.
Fantastic driller, absolutely brilliant driller, and loved it as well. Absolutely loved it, and worked so hard at it.
Yeah.
So it was a great, there was great teamwork there, which
Yeah.
is important, of course, once you're teaching, you know.
Yeah. Do you think, I asked this question, I think you're probably somebody that will be okay to ask it about, do you know this John was talking about, John Calnan was talking about the fact that in the 60s and before that, Cogall and Commission were all one, and he was able to be part of Cogall and also part of Commission. And Maureen O'Rourke, he said, you couldn't believe it. He said, the O'Rourkes and the Nolans, can you imagine, he said, that they were all Cogall, but they were also Commission. And then Cogall split and asked that, or told them that they had to split with Commission. So he said he was the only one who went with Commission in Cork. At the time, there was a huge rift in Cork. Families stopped speaking and everything. And Limerick, he said, stayed very much together in that they all went with Commission. But, you know, Niall O'Leary brought up a question about not the association, about open platforms, and what do you think of the potential for it, or do you think we've gone too big now as an organisation?
It depends, I suppose, in what area you're in. You know, I judged a couple of feshes in Europe which were open platform. And, you know, I mean, as an adjudicator, you don't know who is Commission and who is Cogall, or who is this or who is that. And it was fine. I had no problem. And I think it led to dancing becoming stronger in some parts of Europe like that. I don't know how it would work here in Ireland, because both of the main organisations, Cogall and Commission, are very big.
Yeah.
And very competitive.
That's my reservation.
The ideal situation, of course, would be that everybody would be one. I don't know enough about the original split and how it was split, and on what grounds it was split, and what were the good points and what were the bad points of it. And I don't think I would have enough knowledge to give an opinion on it. I think it would be lovely that if we were all just one, obviously. You know? That's
what Deirdre said. She says, I'd like if we were all one big happy family. She said,
be an idea,
having a Diet Coke. And Paddy said, she sounds like Miss World. I just want world peace. And he said, when you talk about open platforms, I'm thinking back, he said, to the 70s when I had my high platforms, and I'm thinking they made my legs look really long, and I'm all for platforms. He was just so funny. But no, I mean, I do see, but I just think we're probably too big now. I mean, can you imagine a world championships with?
Yeah, oh yeah. As far as the competitions are concerned, all right. But I have a girl, she's a first cousin, well, she'd be a second cousin of mine, Marie Murphy. She won the All-Ireland with Cogall prior to them ever having a world or anything like that. She danced with Deirdre Cadwell in Dublin. She's an adjudicator with Cogall as well. And anytime I went to the World of All-Ireland, I stayed in their house.
Yeah.
And we would always dance together, and I'd show her my steps and she'd show me her steps. And, you know, I mean, we were exactly the same. There was no difference.
No.
You know, if anybody was looking at us, we were just two dancers. But, and Minnie Kiernan as well. I danced with Minnie in a few different things through Coltis as well, back a number of years ago. she was a wonderful, wonderful dancer. She still is a wonderful dancer and a teacher. But again, there was no difference between us, and there was
I mean,
no.
it's just I suppose I'm just somebody, I suppose, who hates to see splits and to see people divided. But um, I was talking to Anne Byrne about it, and she was saying, yeah, I could. She said, I believe that we could have festivals and that where everyone could dance together, but when it comes to competition, it's different. Paddy was saying to me, Jesus Mary, he said, don't you just lose the will to live when they say, and now the next competition has
I
224
know.
dancers in it. Can you imagine? He said if it was go-go as well, there'd be probably 500 in the competition.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And of course, a lot of people now, a lot of the younger teachers have come up in whatever organization that they're in. And like that, they don't really understand that there's
We
what the
didn't
commission
ourselves.
are. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're all commissioned. All the Clare dancers were commissioned.
Yeah, we had no
Um,
idea, even when
no, we just
and it's
went
split
with
in the
whoever was
60s
teaching down the
apparently.
road. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I thought
But
it
maybe
I
someday.
thought it split in the 70s until John Kilnan said no. He said people generally think it split in the early 70s, but it didn't. It split in the 60s, uh,
69, I thought.
69, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I think
that
that's when.
up to then there was no
That's
split.
right.
And
That's right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
he said
That,
that the main problem, the main crux of the split was that he said that the commission, the foundation of the commission was set up wrong in the sense that you had everyone had to speak Irish, and only people from Conra were on the committee, and the only two teachers that were allowed on it were also Conra members. And
Conor remembers.
you
Yeah.
could be asked at the side of the stage going up to speak in Irish, and that was a contributing factor, probably not the whole thing, but
Yeah.
the fact that everything was in Irish, the minutes were taken in Irish, the meetings were held in Irish, and I suppose it disenfranchised people like myself who don't speak. You speak fluent Irish.
Well, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be fluent now, Mary. Absolutely not. But I'd have a good knowledge of it.
Yeah, you'd have a good knowledge.
Um, but like, you know, I don't know enough about the original split
Yeah,
to agree or disagree. To be honest with you, whether it was about the language or whether it was about
yeah, I don't
finances or
know.
whether it was about traditional styles or what have you. I don't know enough about it, so I certainly wouldn't give an
Yeah,
opinion on that. Only to say that I would love if everybody was together.
yeah, that's the
Plain
way
and
I.
simple.
That's the
We're
way.
all dancing at the end of the
But
day.
how do you see the dancing going now, Jackie? Do you think that we'll be back?
Ooh, I hope.
Do you think the world will
Um,
go ahead next year?
it's very difficult to state whether it will or not. Because um, the numbers, unfortunately, with the virus are constantly going up in the last few weeks. It seems to be as bad now as it was last March at the beginning of the first wave. I know here in Clare, the figures have exceeded what they were in the first wave from March to the end of May or whenever it was. Um, I would hope, obviously, that there would be an All Ireland and a World. Um, but I think a decision will have to be made on it fairly soon
I think so.
because of the expense that would be incurred by people, airfares, costumes, you name it. Um, so it's difficult to know, Mary, what this virus is going to do. This time next month, it might be way, way down, or it could have progressed even further than what it is. I hope it doesn't,
There's
but planning, I don't think you can plan for anything at the moment.
no. I mean, I had to cancel my fesh, and I know you run your fesh, but you run it biannually.
Yes, yeah. Linda Ball was running it
This year.
with me, but she cancelled hers last week.
That's
So
right, yeah.
it'll be mine next year, but sure, who knows what next year will bring, you know?
You know, it's just I don't know. I maybe, and there's talks. You know, I was listening to the TV last night, and it was a political current affairs program. I can't think of the name of it, but Ivan Yates used to be on it. But
Yeah,
um, they were talking about, you know, bringing out this herd immunity, and that, and why aren't we going with this herd immunity where everyone just goes out and look, just get on with your life. And you know, there's a lot to be, I'm thinking there's a lot to be said for it anyway, because do you know,
yeah,
what are we going to do? Are we going to spend the rest of our lives locked up, or every couple of weeks being told, no, you've got to stop now, or you're going into stage 3, or now stage 4, up to stage 5, back to stage 3? It can't keep going on. I think people are gradually starting to lose the will, really.
yeah. I think this second wallop that we're all after getting now in the last few weeks here, I think people feel very down because of it. It was a novelty, I suppose, in March, if
Yeah,
something like this can be a novelty. But the
that's
fact,
the
things
reality as
closing
well.
down and all that, we accepted it more easily. I think it's harder to accept now. The situation with the herd immunity, they tried that in Sweden actually in the first phase, but their numbers are gone way, way up now since the second wave has started. So who knows? None of us are experts.
No.
This virus is totally an unknown phenomenon. Nobody knows when it's going to end or how it's going to end or what's the best way in trying to get it to reduce the figures and so forth. We can only hope
But
that.
they've got to be fairer, I think, to people, to groups like Irish dancing classes, because when you look at gymnastics and you look at the children, and they're at the same distance apart in the hall as Irish dancers, who by nature of Irish dancing, you have to maintain your own space on a stage. You lose marks if you clash on in competitions. The only time you actually make physical contact is if you were doing teams. But there's no reason why classes can't open and just do solo dancing. Children are taught from the earliest age to maintain a distance on the stage, and you're in your spot and don't go near the other dancer.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
very hard when teachers see other organizations, sporting activities, and they're they're even in more contact with each other than we are in Irish dancing, and we're only allowed 6 inside in the hall. We're not allowed no one now unless you want to teach out in the
that's
freezing
right.
cold.
That's right. Yeah. Actually, I was just out there a few weeks ago. I was out on a Sunday afternoon, just gone out for a stroll, and I passed the local GA pitch, which is quite close to where I live. And I just looked in the gate, and there was a line of about 50 people on the sideline, shoulder to shoulder, watching the match. And I remember saying, "How can that be? You can't have a dancing class with 6 kids in front of you in a big hall." Some of the places where the teachers are teaching here in town are huge, big venues.
Yeah,
There's plenty of space and so forth. And it does seem unfair in certain aspects. I can fully understand why people are being safe and all that, and that's so important. Um, but when you see something like that, then now I know that the games I think are after closing down as well. Basically, you can't play sports now at the moment because of the level 3 that we're in, but it
you
seems
can't even have a
inconsistent.
visitor over into your garden. I mean, that's bizarre. And you can go to a wedding
Yeah,
with 50 people, or you could
yeah,
meet up with your friends in town and go for a cup of coffee. But you can't
yeah,
have somebody around to your house, nor can you have them in your garden. But yet the Giro d'Italia was on the other day, and it was just swamped. and you had the French Open tennis was on, and they had social distancing people, but they had lots
Yes.
of it. And you're
Yeah.
saying to yourself, and yet there are flights coming in and out of Ireland still.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and you're saying to yourself, wouldn't the sensible thing have been to close airports, ports, and the border, which is contentious, but just close them for a month, and then open up everything, and you've contained everyone in, and contain everybody in their own county for 1 month. If they'd done that, maybe it would have been different. We'd have all been back to our usual routines, but it's really getting to me now, I have to say. I won't.
Yeah, it's depressing, all right, but as I say, this virus is unknown, and really, I don't think anybody knows for sure what's the best thing to do. And we can only follow the guidelines when they come out.
And who in God's name would want to be Taoiseach in this climate? It must be unenviable. It's it's a no-win situation for them.
It is, but I suppose like everything else, they stood for the position. They stood to be a member of the Dáil in the first days. So unfortunately, they're going to have to make the decisions and stand by them, I suppose, and get as much information as they possibly can to make those decisions, which they are doing.
Yeah.
It's a difficult job to be in.
That's what I'm saying. It's unenviable for any politician, any party. I just wouldn't want to have to make those decisions. God Almighty.
Yes.
But where next for Jackie Scanlan?
Where next?
You. I mean, you're a man that always strives to find new things, and you're a chameleon. And you just keep on changing. I mean, you're a dancing teacher, you're a judge, you're an examiner, you're an actor.
A chameleon now or a comedian, which?
Chameleon. You're an actor.
There's a lot of people would call me the latter of those two, I can tell you. No, I still am very involved in the dancing scene. Whether, as you say, it's judging or grade exams or being a member of the regional council, which I love actually.
Yeah.
And then being the council's representative on the commission.
Yeah.
I'm a member of Costa Fara, which I enjoy.
Oh, are you on the Costa?
Yeah. Enjoy that. And just generally, I'm enjoying work at the moment, even though I've only about 4 or 5 years left. But I'm enjoying that and the drama when it comes back into vogue again.
You've mentioned that now, and that's I have to say that's a bugbear of mine, because a friend of mine was in the Department of Transport, a colleague here actually in the station. He's living in Shannon, and 65 years of age, and he had to leave. And he was 67 or 66 before you get your pension. So you have to kind of live horse till you get grass for a year until you get your pension. And look at you, say, for instance, and if you saw him and you'd say to yourself, there's another 30 years in him, because he's dead. He's dead.
Now, Mary, hold on there.
Jackie, his dad and his mom are 90 and 91 and 92. And his father is retired for the best part of 35 years. And he's drawn the pension for 35 years. He could be working. The man is as sprightly as any. I think people should be allowed to work until they feel that they can't or they don't want to.
Yeah, well, I have somebody actually that works in my team, and she's late 60s. And I said to her, I thought you had to retire at 65 or 66. No, there was a certain period of time in the Irish Civil Service where they brought in staff. It was only about 15 years ago. And if they joined during that particular period, they can work. There was no end date. In other words, she can work until she's into her 70s for as long as that she feels she's capable.
I don't know.
Yeah.
know that at all.
I know, I was surprised, and but it's I'm not sure what period of time when they entered. It was literally only a year or two. Recruits that were taken in, we'll say in 92, 93.
That was
They
their
can.
contract.
There is no end date for them, and they can continue on, which is good. But I think after another 5 years now, I'll be ready to retire from work anyway, you know.
Will you move
But
to
sure, I could
Dublin?
always set up my own little consultancy business here, Mary. You know, for the likes of you that are earning all this money
Jesus,
between the
Jackie,
radio station and judging
I'd
and
love
all
it.
this kind of thing,
feel free to
I'll,
look.
I'll sort you out, I can tell you.
Jesus. We're waiting for the day that somebody will come along and say, yeah, you know, we love your station. We're going to buy into it. That's what we're, you know, we're waiting to earn something from it yet. But at the moment, it's a labor of love. Do you know, it's
great.
it started off with interviewing Michael Dillon and then David Gainey, and one led to another, and then, you know, people were saying, oh, you have to keep doing this, and we love hearing our colleagues, and
It's a great service.
Now I can't stop. Do you know, it's just
Good for the archives, as I say, you know, and it'll be
yeah.
there when we're all dead and gone, whenever that'll be. Another 30 years, you told me.
Another
That's fine.
50
That's
years,
fine. I'll
Jackie.
take that.
Another 50 years. Another 50 years.
Okay.
But Jackie Scanlan, you've been fabulous. Thank you so very much for coming on.
No problem at all, Mary. Stay safe.
Because we danced together in the same.
Actually, we did, and we got, if you remember, we had a two-hand treble jig under 10 or 11 or something in the supper room of the mansion house, and we tied for third.
Wasn't it fabulous?
We got our All-Ireland medals that year with our two-hand jig.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Those were great times, fabulous times.
Yeah.
And Anya and Garrod and Father Antone.
That's right.
You know, and you know, their parties were legend, except that if you happen to be at a party in Maureen O'Rourke's, all the girls were locked into one room and the boys were locked into another. Father Antone Tone would be on guard. But yeah, no, we had a great time, and I wouldn't change it for the world, and I don't think you would.
No, absolutely not. No.
Well, Jackie, thank you again.
It was a pleasure.
And it was a joy, honestly, having you on. And Slán Let.
Thanks, Slán. And keep up the good work, Mary.
Thanks, Jackie. And you too. Keep on doing the taxes.
I'll do my best. I'll try my best. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.